All right, my name is Jodie Donato, and mine is a News 21 story called The Brave Old World. And this is actually a second part of a two-part story. So I'm just going to show you the first one. So it's under a previous product. And it's Brave Old World. So it's the same team that wrote the first story about it. And I keep hitting the corner. And then this is a staff overview, and it tells you about each student, where they went to school, a little bit about them, and they all have a picture. So there's quite a few of them. And then there's advisors and staff down there. And then the same stuff. And then the project just gives an overview about how the impact of old people and how basically everyone is going to get old. That's the impact of this story, is that eventually we will all age. No matter what, everyone is aging. We are all aging right now as we speak. So I'm sorry. Start putting on moisturizer. So. You have to start while you're in your 20s. Alright, so there are these tabs up top right here, and when you go over them, they get boxed out, and the pictures down here are the same exact headings. So you can just click on them individually, or on this, depending if you're a visual learner or if you're you read, you're better off with text. So first off, it has an interactive where you fill in some information, and it shows you changes in population. So I'm just going to scroll down and fill this out for you real fast. You're going to get to know me now. Okay, so you just fill it out real quick and you can begin. Then you can press the play button and it'll show you from 2010, when this was written, to 2015, like how population will change over time. And you can see that it'll get lower and lower and lower because there are fewer and fewer people reaching the age of 90 to 95, because most people die off a little younger than that. So, and it gives you different population percentages of Asian, African American, Hispanic, white, and other. And then in 2050, I will be 57 years old. So, and then you can move on to the next one, and this shows where the elderly people are right now, or technically in 2010. This is where the oldest percentage was in Florida. Big surprise. Who knew? Not a lot in Texas, because it's probably way too hot. So you can see how older and older people are being pushed into other states, and you can see how dark Florida gets in the very end, because that's where all the old people like to migrate. So they are moving to typically warmer states or colder states. So it's kind of half and half. It's either like they're really, really warm, or it's really, really cold. So moving on. This is just a little graph, and you can click on other races to see how it fluctuates through. And then who suffers from diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. And you can also switch it through ages on here. And so it's very personalized, this whole little interactive piece. So these you can also click on, which is pretty interesting. The only problem with this is I noticed that marriage is this gray, and on my laptop it was way harder to see. It's still pretty hard to see, so I would have picked a different color for that. So, or a less opaque. So, and then you can click on this sidebar right here. It shows basically the layout of each page. So you can click on back, and it'll basically scroll you up and down without having to use the mouse or the arrow keys. So each little page, I thought this was personalized at first for my, well, like what information I put in, because right off the bat it starts talking about women and their percentages. So I went back and put that I was a Hispanic male, and I was born in 1985, and it did not change. So I was just curious to see if that changed along with this story, and it does not. So moving on. I really like the dark gray background compared to the white font. I'm a big fan of dark backgrounds and white fonts. I think it's easier to read. I think all the white, I get bored and lost and just zone out. And I really like all the really bright, happy pictures. It kind of makes old people see, like, being old kind of look kind of fun. Like, oh, look at me, I'm shopping. enjoying my day, being very old. So, in Aiken, South Carolina, the age wave of the future is here today. So basically in Aiken, South Carolina, it is the perfect society of old people in a gist. And they have their own health systems, they have their own finances, they have individual jobs for elderly where they read to children in the area and they get paid like $2.95 an hour to read to children, teach them how to read and write. So I think that's kind of strange that they don't get paid minimum wage, but it's more like a volunteering process. So they still get enough money, they can pay for some small things like food and wages, because their retirement should cover most of it, but it doesn't. So that's probably part of the problem. So, okay. So there's a lot of videos in this, and they're all very personalized, like individual stories. So here's a little one.
I'm Barbara, and this is my husband Bill. I came home one day from 2 appointments thinking he was upstairs, and after about an hour I realized he wasn't here. I didn't want him working in the woods anymore, and he said he wouldn't, but when you have dementia you don't remember your promises.
Around Aiken there's a lot of woods and parks, and they don't know where they are, they get lost.
Okay. So right there you can see he has a tracker bracelet on, similar to like if you were on probation, if you got arrested and they let you get on home arrest. So they put this tracker bracelet on you, and it's kind of like those, you know, the commercials where the old people have the button and they could call 911 immediately, like that. It's similar to that. So basically, if you have like dementia and your spouse or your family member or your neighbor realizes you're gone, the police department has all your information on each individual tracking bracelet, and so the police can go around and look for you. So later in this video you'll kind of see a cop walking around trying to find someone.
For example, the night that I found Mr. Wall, he was about 1.5 miles away from his home. I began to get a signal within probably a mile.
Luckily, they were able to get a faint signal and follow it.
Okay, so you can see how that would come in handy, how that's technology and they're advancing. So in this little elderly population, it's so specific, like for jobs and technology, that they're just honing in on like what are the real problems with these kind of areas, how can we fix them, like how are we losing people, like where are they going, how, like she went to a doctor's appointment and she came back, her husband was gone, like you have no idea where they could have went. They could have thought it was 20 years ago and they were still working at the shop down the street, so they probably went to try to go to work. You have no idea with dementia patients. So, and then here's another little video. This is about they package fresh meals and then send them to the elderly patients and clients. So, because a lot of them can't cook for themselves, so that's a nice little thing that they do. A lot of older people actually volunteer for it too.
Tropical fruit cup and bread.
Okay, so there's just a little quick clip that you can see that they are serving individual portions into each little container, and then they're sealing it with that device right there, and then they're bringing them to the clients in coolers and bringing them to them, so that way they can eat a fresh meal that day. And then another program that they have here in South Carolina is they have a foster and grandparents program, and it's really cute because these little old people are helping these cute little kids, and it's just so sweet. Like they both get to bond with each other. Like I don't have grandparents anymore, they passed away, so it's really nice to see like that they still get that relationship. They both get to spend time with each other. They get to do arts and crafts, like if they have dementia or they have like autism, they have like the same brain capability where they can enjoy it together still. So that's really sweet. And then is another short thing about expectations and lessons about the program. So moving on to family caregiving. I actually had my grandma live with us for a very long time. My parents built a grandmother suite on the side of our house. So it was basically a very small apartment. She had a bathroom, a bedroom, a closet, a kitchen that was full service. And eventually she had oxygen, so she couldn't use the stove or anything because it was dangerous. So this whole section, this whole little page, and I got rid of it. I don't know where it went. Okay, there it goes. So this whole section is about how when your parents, your spouse, or relative gets elderly, like what happens to them, where do they go? Do they get put into a home because you can't have the time or the money or the resources, you don't have the knowledge to do it? Or do you take them on in like my family did, and we, set up a different, like, she rented it, but she paid for everything herself out of her own retirement, but we'd check on her. She would cook her own meals. Like, it was basically like she lived on her own, but we were always there just in case. Where other times, like this story right here,
Yeah, what's your favorite song?
she does as much as she can, similar to my grandma could, until my grandma fell and broke her hip, and then we had to put her in a home.
Let me call you sweetheart.
Let me call you sweetheart, I'm in love with you. Let me hear you whisper that you love me too. And then she probably knows some other songs, but you don't want to hear those. They're probably dirty, right?
So that's a little clip of a daughter and mother bonding while she moved her into her own apartment. And then here's another story, but I'm just going to give you a little recap of what it is real fast. So this mother was cooking, and she all of a sudden became unconscious. She fell down while she was cooking, and her daughter walked in on her, and there was just smoke everywhere. She was unconscious. She had no way to know that the house could have been burning down. So just like elderly people, it's kind of hard because it could be really unsafe to live by themselves, even though they do want to be independent. So, and then this is another video, a little story about how they haven't talked about a Plan B. Like, a lot of people don't think about, like, well, what happens when my parents get old? What am I going to do? Am I going to put them in a home? Are they going to live here? Am I going to move into the house again? Like, what happens if I have my own house? What am I going to do with their house? Do I have to sell their house? And then another story on here is that this lady, who is a retired nurse, sold her house, or tried to sell her house for over a year, and no one ever bought it, so she couldn't use that money to retire. So she had to continue working at 70, volunteering and helping children, just so she could make ends meet, so she could pay for her apartment. And she moved to New York to be with her son, so she would be closer to him and his son and everything. So DIY Senior Living is a couple little blurbs about how people and the elderly are starting to move into RVs and travel a lot more. They're kind of confined, they're easy accessible, like it's just more convenient for them, and they enjoy traveling still. So it's nice to have like a little home sweet home wherever you go. In their own homes with Village Help is Lincoln Park Village. It's a program where the Relief Medical Services, they come into your home and they act as an in-house aide, like a nurse almost. So in this little story right here, a husband and wife were about to leave to go to their daughter's baby shower. He fell, broke his wrist, sprained his other wrist, and so he no longer could go. She would still like to go to the baby shower, so she'd plan on going. But the Relief Medical Services came in and they took care of him. They came into his house, so he didn't have to relocate. He still knew where everything was. They just made sure that he got bathed and he was ate and he slept okay, took his medications on time. So it's like a nice little program that they just aid. They're not there to do everything for you. You're still active and doing what you can, but they're just there just to double check and see what you're doing. I also like that this website has them on separate little pages through each little block. So the website, you don't have to scroll forever to get to each story, and then you can still click on them over here. So that's a nice feature. And then the Graying Workplace is, this section is about how you have a trained skill, and so if you have a trained skill and you're trying to pass it on, you either have to get an apprentice, you have to train somebody else, or you have to continue to work. So that's a big problem with a lot of specific skills like jewelry makers and craftsmen, that they don't have that option to train someone else in the amount of time where they can just make it themselves. So they just end up keeping working, or if they own their own business, they just end up doing it over and over again and never being able to retire. And then this is pictures, but you can click on all of them, and they're different stories about why these elderly people work. So I thought that was pretty interesting. There's not a lot I'd change about them. I really enjoyed this website. I learned a lot. I didn't think I would like it at all. I thought, I have plenty of time, I don't need to worry about this at all. And then I realized my dad's got to retire soon. Somehow I have to figure out what I'm going to do with them if I move in a different state. Like, who's going to take care of them? Will it be my brothers? Will it be my sisters? So there's just a lot to think about now. Like, it just put a lot more information in my head that I didn't want to know, but I needed to know. So I think it was worth the multimedia investment because it's the younger generations that need to learn about this more than the elderly. The elderly are already living in the elderly population. They're already trying to get taken care of and take care of themselves. So, but the big font and the pictures help. So if an elderly person did use the multimedia asset, they can like access it quickly and effectively. So, all right, and I think that'll be it.